They had already done this before, and what is different? Now, good preaching would say, well, Jesus just told us. This kind comes out by prayer and fasting. So obviously the disciples hadn't prayed and fasted enough. That's what we always gravitate toward. And maybe that is what Jesus is saying, that your spiritual disciplines are weak. And therefore, because your spiritual disciplines are weak, you're weak, and the enemy, when you try to take authority, says, but you have no authority. But my understanding is the authority is in the name of Jesus, not in my spiritual disciplines. Now, that's my understanding of what Jesus taught, that the power is in the name of Jesus, not in the power of how often Steve prays and how much he fasts. So then I look at it and I think, what is Jesus actually saying? And one thing strikes me. When that guy says, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, that kind of falls into the category of prayer for me. When I cry out for help to God, I consider it a prayer. You say, the disciples, so they didn't pray then. And the Father did. We get all this whole thing going on. We have been taught, I think, most of us, throughout our spiritual lives, if you've ever heard teachings on fasting. I mean, I know people that say, I'm going to fast next week because I need to, whatever. And it's usually geared around ourselves. Well, I need to fast for this. I need to fast for that. Maybe you've experienced times where you've actually fasted for someone else. I don't know. But Isaiah 58, which we won't read right now, please do though, because God makes it very clear what he calls a fast. And what he calls a fast is denying ourselves of something in order to provide for someone else. In other words, the meal that I don't eat is to bring a meal to somebody else. When I don't do this or do that, it gives me the time to do something for somebody else. I'm just telling you the way I think, and I'm throwing it out to you, because I think one of the things that we've done in our Christian development and walk is not really considered more with the scriptures instead of less. While we've been trying to contextualize and jam everything, I think it's bigger. I think it's part of all things, and of the many things, if you would. And what I hear Jesus saying, this kind comes out by prayer and fasting. I just wonder if the disciples were more into the power of the demonstration or the demonstration of power. I don't know. All I know is something was wrong that Jesus defines as prayer and fasting, and maybe it is spiritual disciplines. That doesn't fly real well with me, only because I think in terms of, like I say, it is the name of Jesus. It's his commissioning, it's his word, not mine. But there must be something about the disciples that couldn't deal with the situation. And I would say this, that if we're into the wrong things, if we're more into this whole thing about power, instead of a demonstration of his love, if we're more into, well, we don't want to bother Jesus, he's on the mountain over there and we're going to take care of it here, we can do this kind of thing. There could be some motivation in the intents of our hearts, or it could be something as simple as, when you pray, when you really start to pray for people, you start to get filled with compassion. We didn't read the scriptures today. I got about 8 of them here that have to do with Jesus talking about compassion, whether he's feeding thousands, whether he's dealing with demoniacs, healing people. Compassion is at the heart of it. Not the power that we think of power, but compassion. It becomes interesting because we've always been taught about the calling down of power. And it seems like Jesus is saying, when you just pray in your own need, because when you're fasting, you're praying out of your own need for the needy. That when you enter that place, you start to get overwhelmed with compassion. And compassion is a powerful thing, at least the demonstration that Jesus gives us of compassion. That compassion that we have for the suffering releases all things to deal with the many things.